Live from Broadcasting House, this is KBC Prime Edition. Good evening. I am your host, Mboya. A look at our top stories tonight. Brian Muraru is our sign language interpreter. Our socials at KBC Channel 1. British King Charles III started his 4-day trip to Kenya in a symbolic visit, which is expected to cement relations between Nairobi and its colonial master. The trip, which is the first outside of Europe, comes at a time when the United Kingdom is seeking to stamp its influence on the global stage. President William Ruto today morning welcomed the King and his entourage to State House today as the British monarchy embarked on a 4-day visit to Kenya. That report opens our coverage tonight.
At exactly 10:38 in the a.m., King Charles III and Queen Camilla made their way to State House, where their host President William Ruto was at hand to receive them. After the Kenyan and the British national anthems, the King was accorded the ceremonial 21-gun salute by members of the Kenya Defence Forces before he proceeded to inspect the Guard of Honour mounted by Kenya Army. This was followed by a tree planting ceremony by the Majesties. Both King Charles and Queen Camilla planted the African fern tree. The tree is a conifer with long narrow leaves and it's a native of East Africa. The evergreen leaves grow up to 4 inches in length at maturity, making it a favorite in the region. After the tree planting ceremony, the Majesties retreated for a closed-door meeting with President Ruto and selected members of his cabinet. After about 20 minutes of private engagement, the two leaders emerged from the closed-door meeting but never addressed the waiting local and international journalists. President Ruto is expected to host the visiting monarch for a state banquet later this evening.
The next 4 days are going to be very intense for King Charles III and his wife, Queen Camilla. All the eyes of the world will be on the Majesties. Their words are going to be measured and analyzed highly, and their actions will be judged and watched keenly. From State House, I'm O'Brien Kimani.
No doubt 4 days, very intense days for King Charles III, who, by the way, laid a wreath on the tomb of the unknown warriors at the Uhuru Park Memorial Garden in honor of Kenya's fallen pre-independence heroes on the first day of his 4-day official visit. The King, an advocate of organic farming, also visited City Shamba, a smart agricultural project in the heart of Nairobi's Kayole. Our senior reporter Regina Manyara tracks the King's diary on day 1.
Despite Buckingham Palace declining to say whether King Charles III will apologize for Britain's crackdown on the Mau Mau rebellion, a gesture considered dicey for it would open the British government to calls for compensation, King Charles opted to honor Kenya's fallen heroes. In a solemn wreath-laying ceremony at the Uhuru Garden Memorial Park, where he was accompanied by President William Ruto.
This is one of the happiest days of my life.
The park is hallowed ground where the Union Jack, that's the British flag, was first lowered and the Kenyan flag hoisted with the national anthem being sung for the first time on December 12th of 1963. The king and his entourage was taken through the Tunnel of Martyrs that honors heroes of Kenya's fight for independence, the Hall of Legends that showcases the lives of, among others, the late Mzee Jomo Kenyatta, Mikati Lili Wamenza, Koitalel Arap Samoei, Jaramogi Oginga Odinga, and Nabongo Mumia, among others. After the tour, an advocate of organic farming, King Charles, drove through the city to City Shamba in Kayole.
This is City Shamba. This particular project not only focuses on matters of smart agriculture, but also embodies what King Charles holds close to his heart, and this is organic farming. This particular project also focuses on vertical agriculture, and it seeks to educate and empower especially smallholder farmers and also in those who want to practice farming in the peri-urban areas.
City Shamba is an urban agricultural business at Mama Lucy Hospital that builds city gardens appropriate for small spaces, employing smart agri-techniques such as vertical agriculture. The king interacted with officials as they explained to him about farming and even harvested some of the produce. Winding up the first day of his visit, it is clear Britain is keen on actualizing its soft diplomacy model.
And I'm so honored to present the vegetables to the king, and it's such a pleasure.
His particular visit is also going to draw a lot of scrutiny, especially in regard to where Britain stands when it comes to the repatriation process. I'm Regina Manyara reporting for KBC from Uhuru Gardens Memorial Park.
Of course, King Charles III is expected to unveil the Wangare Maathai Marathon. We will be telling you that in more detail a little later on. But senators have voted to hear the impeachment of Meru County Governor Kawira Mwangaza in plenary. The decision was reached amid sharp divisions between the two political factions of senators allied to the ruling party, who objected to the establishment of a committee to investigate the accusations. Governor Kawira, remember, is facing 3 charges that include misappropriation of county resources, nepotism, among others. Kamche Menza with the details.
All senators will be given the opportunity to scrutinize the impeachment of Meru Governor Kawira Mwangaza after the Senate shot down a motion seeking to establish a committee to hear the matter.
I don't really care how anyone votes. I think all of us will vote based on their own conscience. What I care is on the process of coming up to that vote. And this is why I want to persuade you that a committee will be able to give you and yourself and myself an opportunity to read a report that 11 distinguished members of this House would have already carried out an investigation on.
It is the responsibility of this House, Mr. Speaker, to find out whether on the facts and the evidence that threshold has been made. And in my submission, Mr. Speaker, it is close to impossible in an interrogation such as the one that happens in plenary to establish the facts and the law of the allegations and whether that threshold has been met.
I want to plead with our colleagues, even if you're pursuing a particular interest, don't be unfair on the House. Don't cast aspersions to the House and believe that for whatever reason, members will suddenly not reason that the only way you can concentrate is if you're reduced from being 67 to only 11 of you. I don't think that is fair to the House.
A section of senators argued that subjecting the matter to a committee will deny the House the opportunity to holistically interrogate the issues raised by the Meru County Assembly and the response of the embattled county boss.
For the purpose of transparency, in the public glaring, that plenary is the best way to go so that members of public can follow.
When I hear the names of the 11 members, I must admit that we do not have 2 sets of brains. That one you leave when you're going to the committee and the other one that you take when you're going to the plenary. Mr. Speaker, we use the same brains. Whether we are 11 here in the House or we are the whole House.
Mr. Speaker, the move on the second of this motion has severally mentioned Meru County. That they know what is best for Meru County. If there is anyone who knows what is best for Meru County, is none other than Kadhuri Murungi.
Na Bwana Spika, nimesikia wengi wakisema ya kwamba hii impeachment motion ikipelekwa kwa committee haitapata haki. Hii inamaanisha kwamba zile petitions zote na statements na motions zinaletwa hapa na zinapelekwa kwa committee hazipati haki.
Governor Kawira is accused of misappropriation and misuse of county resources, nepotism and related unethical practices, and bullying, vilification and demeaning other leaders.
Paid full salaries and benefits for over a year to 4 high-ranking county officials, despite them not rendering any services to the county.
This is the second time in just a year that the Meru County Assembly has voted to impeach the governor.
As many as of that opinion say aye. Aye. Will as many of the contrary opinion say nay? Nay. The nays have it.
The Senate will convene on Tuesday and Wednesday next week to hear the impeachment. The parties will be given an opportunity to present their cases, after which the Senate will vote on each charge. Kamchemenza for Prime Edition.
Let's now look at that plan to have an annual Wangari Maathai marathon to be unveiled by King Charles III during his first visit as monarch. This week, the inaugural marathon is set for the 3rd of March 2024. This comes as the Chief Executive Officer of the Wangari Maathai Foundation, Jerry Kabeberi, calls on leaders across the world to emulate the vision and philosophy of the late professor for the good of the human race. Here is Sarafina Robi with the feature, The Unbowed Spirit.
Since the passing of the Nobel Peace Prize winner, Professor Wangari Maathai, on the 25th of September 2011, due to cancer-related complications, those who interacted with her are still at awe 12 years later, describing her relentless spirit.
I feel like she lived totally. She lived her whole self. She didn't leave anything that she could have done that she didn't do. Of course, we miss her and we wish she had lived longer. But when you look at her legacy, it is a legacy. I don't know anyone in the world who has lived such a legacy, despite only having lived it for 72 years. And you would find her with release of political prisoners. You'd find her during the civil strife in Kenya, going around preaching peace. You'd find her with women, trying to promote women leaders. You'd find her as a politician, and you'd find her as an environmentalist.
The CEO of the Wangari Maathai Foundation, Jerry Kabeberi, highlights the late professor's struggle to protect the world's forests.
We're going to shed blood because of our land. We will. We are used to that. Our forefathers shed blood for our land. We will do so. This is my blood, and it reminds me of the blood that Wayaki shed trying to protect Karura Forest.
And what kept shocking me is Wangari would be beaten, brutalized, hospitalized, and she would come back to the struggle. It moved from Freedom Corner to the All Saints Cathedral at some point, but she would come back. She would be hospitalized and come back. I had never come across that kind of person and that kind of courage and that kind of determination. So she was somebody, if she set her mind on something, until it is accomplished, she would not walk away. So I never saw her walk away from any action that she had ever started. She understood that man could not be put on earth before everything else was there, because how would he live? But we don't understand that, and we didn't understand that. So Karura, the fight for Karura is a fight for humanity. The fight for forests continues to be the fight for humanity. She got beaten, she got hospitalized, she got imprisoned. Everything bad that could happen to her happened.
Professor Wangari Maathai is known to have started the Green Belt movement in 1977 under the auspices of the National Council of Women of Kenya to respond to the needs of rural Kenyan women who reported that rivers and streams within their areas were drying up. Their food supply was getting insecure day after day, among other complaints, due to the changing climate conditions. Years later, after her death, this will culminate in the Wangari Maathai Foundation.
The foundation was started in 2015, registered as a foundation. We are not just doing environment work. We want everybody to understand who she was, and therefore we are starting with young people. We have a project, in fact our flagship program is on young people. From the age of 6 up to the age of 35, we have 4 different programs that we do. And when we start with the 6-year-olds, we have a project called Hummingbird, the Hummingbird Leadership Program, where we want them to understand exactly Professor Wangari's philosophy. And we, with all 4 programs, we talk about her courageous and responsible leadership. It's not enough to have courage if you're not a responsible leader.
King Charles III, who is visiting the country for the first time since ascending to the throne, is expected to honor the efforts of the late Professor Wangari by officiating at the unveiling of a plan to hold annual marathon in her honor with the inaugural event slated for the 3rd of March 2024.
We want to launch it next week, and we are going to have it on 3rd of March 2024, which is her the Wangari Maathai Day. Wangari Maathai Day was also Africa Environment Day, but they devoted it to the name Wangari Maathai. So Africa Environment Day today is called Wangari Maathai Day. So we want to have a marathon, the first Wangari Maathai marathon on that day, and then we want to be having these marathons every year. The theme of the marathon is the power of one. Wangari believed so much that in the power of one, and she also believed in something she called your little thing. That if you do your little thing, you become powerful.
Philip Wamihiu, a forester with over 42 years experience and who also interacted with Professor Wangari, talks of the need for the country to ensure sustainability of Professor Wangari's legacy.
There has been a serious degradation, particularly in what we call the water towers. There are 5 major water towers in this country: Mount Kenya, Aberdares, Mount Elgon. There is also Mau, which is a huge ecosystem, and also Sherengani. And all those requires to be rehabilitated or restored, because if they are not, then the biodiversity and water catchment areas will shrink.
Professor Wangari Maathai won the Nobel Peace Prize on the 8th of October 2004 in recognition of her contribution to sustainable development, democracy and peace, becoming the first African woman to win the coveted award.
Us to stand up for what we believe in.
Professor Wangari has 3 children, 2 daughters, Wanjira Maathai, Muta Maathai, and 1 son, Waweru Maathai. Her daughter continues with her legacy through different environmental initiatives.
Activists around the world, whatever it is you are holding on to, if you could have that kind of determination, if you could read her book like Sarafina here has, and then have that kind of determination that she had, I think the world would be a different place. Because each of us, as I said earlier, each of us has a purpose in this life. And if we could all live our purpose with that level of determination, the world would definitely be a different place.
Professor Wangari's dedication and passion in environmental issues through initiatives such as the Green Belt movement continues to inspire generations on the need for environment sustainability. Serafina Robi for Prime Edition.
Of course, we remember Professor Wangari Maathai for many things, including pioneering work in linking environmental protection with human rights. Now, moving on, Tony Massey Bloomfield is a British citizen who has lived in Kenya for 77 years. and has also witnessed some of the historic events, including the 1963 transition of Kenya from a British colony to a sovereign state. Tony also witnessed the 1952 ascension to the throne of Queen Elizabeth II while she was on tour in Kenya. Marie Yambo caught up with Tony at his home here in Nairobi, Kenya, the Hurlingham area, to try and understand what the British monarchy means to the people of England, the do's, the don'ts, when the king is around.
86-year-old Tony Massey Blomfield is a royal enthusiast, although he has lived most of his life in Kenya. He believes the king is a symbol of spiritual leadership.
I love the monarchy because I think you're probably aware that on the crown of all the royal crowns is a cross, to remind us all that she is aware of, and he is now aware of, the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords.
And Lord of Lords.
He says although England has become more secular, to him the king is a constant reminder of the Christian faith that was epitomized during King Charles III coronation.
There was a part of the coronation where he goes into this tent and makes his solemn vows.
The things which I have herebefore promised.
To God, to serve him all his life. And if you remember, the moderator of the Church of Scotland presents the king with what he describes as the most precious gift this world affords, and that is the Bible.
The protocol in the British monarchy is that the king is not just the head of the monarchy, but also the state.
He does provide continuity, and that's what I like. I think, you know, when the monarch dies, they always say, if it's a man, they say, the king is dead, long live the king, the next one. So there's no period, there's no long period for elections and that sort of thing.
And his wife, that is the Queen, does not share in his position.
The Queen Consort was not anointed like the king was, so she's aware that her position is just slightly subsidiary to his, you know, but he depends on her tremendously.
In public, the Queen Consort Camilla walks a few steps behind the king as a sign of respect to the king. While he has no political powers, the king's role is service to the people. And when the people get the chance to meet the king, there are certain protocol etiquettes when it comes to shaking hands.
I think the Queen said how many hands she must have shaken in her lifetime. I think in the end, it gets a bit tired, actually, and some don't always shake hands very sensibly. Sometimes they grasp it very hard, you know, and he pulls it away. Girls or ladies are supposed to curtsy, and men are supposed to bob their head.
So is Tony going to be part of the king's entourage?
My dear, I'm a nobody, you know. If I hear that he's going to be seen driving, I'll try and go on the side of the road and wave to him, you know. Maybe a Union flag or something, I don't know. A Union flag and a Kenyan flag, really. That's what I'd like to do.
Although the king's visit has elicited mixed reactions, Tony believes there is much to gain from this century-long relationship.
I do believe that he's going to help to bring a more warm relationship. You talked about shaking hands. Yes. I think it's time we all shook hands and forgot the past, don't you?
What's that? Marie Ambo reporting for KBC Channel 1.
Let's now move into the corridors of justice. Embakasi East member of National Assembly Babu Owino and his Kasarani counterpart Ronald Karauri have gone to court to contest the late politician Gershon Kirima's ownership of the 1,000 acres of parcel in Jiro. They claim, by the way, that land belongs to an Italian national, Domenico Di Masi, and challenged the Kirima family to produce the original documents to prove their ownership of the land. Elsewhere, televangelist Ezekiel Odero, who has been linked to the Shakahola massacre, is tonight a free bird.
Embakasi East member of National Assembly Babu Owino and his Kasarani counterpart Ronald Karauri claimed that the said parcel of land in Jiru had been acquired by deceased Italian national Domenico Di Masi in 1966. Accompanied by their lawyers, the legislators presented documents at the Milimani Law Courts of what they claim is an original copy issued by the government in 1966 for sale of the land was sold to one Italian national, Domenico Di Masi, and whose heir is currently in Nairobi.
I just want to give an assurance to the great people of Embakasi East and the great people of Kasarani constituency that we, as your members of parliament, we will protect your interest, we will fight for you. This war is far from over.
It is very important, especially in a case where people are going to lose their homes and their properties. We establish, first of all, who the rightful owner of that land is. Because if you look at the history, because the evidence that we'll present, we have an old title coming from 1904, I believe. 1904. There is no evidence of that land being transferred to the Kirimas.
Elsewhere, renowned televangelist Ezekiel Odero of New Life Prayer Center and Church has been acquitted of all the alleged crimes against him. Pastor Ezekiel had been under investigation since May this year when he was arrested and detained in connection to the Shakahola massacre and accused of murder, genocide, indoctrination, cruelty against children, among other crimes. He was cleared for lack of enough evidence against him.
I'm not angry with anybody. Hakuna mtu amenikosea. Hii ilikuwa ni test yangu, Mungu kuangalia kama mimi naweza nikasimamia ukweli na sitamuacha baada ya yote.
And I'm appealing to the Attorney General, the Registrar of Societies, that you have now seen where you are putting your strength, that the criminal arm is investigating Pastor. There is no criminal investigations on Pastor Ezekiel Odero.
For Prime Edition, I'm Alvin Pounder.
And that story brings us to our first break. Coming up, we dive deeper into tonight's coverage. Stay with us.
Squeezy barabara ni nywe.
Kenya Roads Board is committed to ensure an efficient road network for a prosperous nation. Kenya Roads Board, your fuel levy at work.
Mchezaji wa Loto Moto.
Mungu awabariki sana.
Ni wengi wanakushukuru bila hata wewe kufahamu.
Niliona Mungu wa ajabu ameshuka.
Ni wengi wanaokuaminia.
Imejaa, imebaki, yani hamtasa.
Ni wengi wanaokuombea ushindi.
Hawa ndio niachiwe na mama yao wakati aliwajeka kwa muda.
Ni wengi unaowagusa kwa kuwapa afueni na imani ya maisha.
Asante na Mungu akubariki pia.
Ni wengi unawatembelea.
Through hii program ndo tunajua vitu zingine.
Na imani yako inawapa amani.
Akaaga juu ya kansa.
Ushindi wako ni wa wengi.
Roma niedanga, Roma.
Asante mchezaji wa Loto Moto.
All holders are notified to report and surrender unclaimed financial assets to the Unclaimed Financial Assets Authority, UFAA, on or before November 1st, 2023. It is now easier to report and surrender. Visit www.ufaa.go.ke and get started. Beat the November 1st deadline. It is your turn to surrender and report qualifying unclaimed financial assets. Pass the baton. Unclaimed Financial Assets Authority. Receive, safeguard, reunite.
Welcome back now. There's an item here on education. The government says that all measures have been put in place to protect the integrity of the ongoing national examinations. Education Cabinet Secretary Ezekiel Machogu says that there have been no major incidences and that the multi-sectoral approach to the exercise is proving effective in dealing with all emerging issues.
It is day 2 of the national examination, and the government says the center is holding. Speaking when he inspected the exercise in Kibra, Education Cabinet Secretary Ezekiel Machogu said everything is smooth so far.
All is going well. I must say that we have not had any ugly incident so far.
Kenya Certificate of Primary Education candidates sat for 3 papers today, while the Kenya Primary School Education Assessment colleagues sat for 2 papers on Tuesday. Security has been beefed up in volatile areas to ensure all candidates write the historic exam.
The government will continue tightening the security measures in those particular areas of the country. And of course, for government to be able to manage, we ask the local communities also to come forward and give intelligence and information to government so that we can be able to combat and counter those bad elements within our society.
Machogu said the exercise has been shielded against malpractice.
We've not had any single incident of malpractice or cheating anywhere within the country in all our centers. And this is partly because of the kind of measures that we have been able to put in place.
Meanwhile, the government has assured pupils who failed to write their papers due to genuine reasons that they will be accorded the chance to do so.
We shall make sure that as much as we can, all our children who are able to sit for the exam will sit for the exam. Those who will not be able to sit for this KCPE, we shall be able to look at ways in which as government we shall assist these children to transit to the next level.
In Nairobi, Information Communication Technology and Digital Economy Cabinet Secretary Eliud Owalo presided over a similar exercise at Westlands Primary School.
You should not panic because your teachers and your parents have prepared you well for these exams. Are we together? Yes. There is nothing strange or too unique about exams. It is what you have been learning each and every day.
The exams will end on Wednesday. Persai Frederick reporting for Prime Edition.
One person has been shot dead in Baringo North after suspected bandits raided Ngarutuko village and made away with an unknown number of livestock. The attack occurred even as a section of leaders from the region were summoned by the Directorate of Criminal Investigations over allegations of incitement in the region. Meanwhile, Interior Cabinet Secretary Professor Kithure Kindiki has held a meeting with security teams in the region to discuss ways of dealing with the violence there.
Security teams in Kericho County are on high alert following a series of attacks in Kericho North. The latest spate of violence has claimed 1 life and led to the disappearance of several livestock. According to the deceased's brother, the late Silas Chelimo was looking after his livestock near Ngarutuku Primary School before he was attacked and killed.
Watoto hawawezi wakakaa kwa sababu sasa zile bunduki ililia tunakutana na watoto, watu wanakutana na watoto wanakimbia huko nyumbani kwa sababu mahali walikuwa hakuna security.
Hakuna mkutano ya security na wamejaribu. Sasa hii mtu mmoja tumepoteza mtu mmoja, kijana mdogo sana mwenye angekuwa na maisha. So tukiendelea kupoteza vijana. Hii area itakuwa iko na watu.
The gunshots could be heard from the Ngarutuku Primary School where candidates were sitting their national examinations. The attack also took place just 20 kilometers away from where Interior Cabinet Secretary Kithure Kindiki held a top-level security meeting. Meanwhile, a section of leaders, among them Tiati MP William Kamket and his counterparts Peter Lochakapong of Sigori and Kapinguri MP Julius Murgor, was summoned to the Rift Valley Directorate of Criminal Investigations of allegations of incitement in the region. The North Rift region lawmakers, through their lawyer, called on the National Security Council to hold joint meetings to seek an amicable solutions to troubles facing the region. Yusufar reporting for Prime Edition.
Various experts on matters of the economy, including the Office of the Controller of Budget and the Parliamentary Budget Office, among others, have today proposed to the National Dialogue Committee that the government consider conducting a tax review to ensure that those at the low income base are not overburdened. They also emphasized the need to focus on local food production to relieve pressure on imports.
The National Dialogue Committee on Tuesday met various experts to gather proposals on reducing the cost of living. Office of the Control of Budget called for tax reforms by the government to avoid overburdening, especially the low-income earners, a proposal that was endorsed by other experts.
We feel that the increases may not be progressive and are burdening the various households. We also know that too much taxation may lead to actually tax evasion.
The Control of Budget further called for tough action against the corrupt to protect public resources from theft.
Measures to eliminate corruption and ensure proper utilization of public funds for the benefit of the citizens.
The Parliamentary Budget Office on its side proposed that the government consider reducing its recurrent expenditure. The Institute of Economic Affairs say the government should offer tax relief to businesses that are still struggling following the effects of COVID-19.
The conversation we've gone with so far is to subsidize farmers. And it tends to be big farmers who are the ones who got the fertilizer and got the seed. And so they have big stores. But if somebody in a certain market, say, if this was a Bomas village and their income has not grown for 5 years, that supply does not help them.
The Society for International Development insisted that the country must heavily invest in local food production to reduce imports.
The main primary cause is the too much imports relative to our exports. The difference between the two, I got some numbers here, is 5.8 billion US dollars, which is about 900 billion, which you have to finance. You have to find new dollars to pay for your imports.
Giverson Minor, Prime Edition.
Let's cross over to Busia County, where the health department in Teso North sub-county has reported a reduction in cases of fistula among expectant mothers. This has been attributed to the sustained awareness efforts among pregnant mothers. Details of this and more stories in our county news roundup.
Catherine Erone, a reproductive health coordinator in Teso North sub-county, noted that teenage mothers were the most affected by fistula cases because they get pregnant when their bodies were not fully developed.
Young girls who get pregnant, their body development is still in process, and when they're pregnant, chances of them getting having a safe delivery is wanting.
On politics, Kisii woman representative Doris Aburi has urged the local community to embrace women and youth leadership, noting that Kisii and Nyamira counties had very few elected women leaders.
It has opened my eye that it is not only the seat of the women rep that we can fight for, we can also fight for Senate, for a member of county assembly. In Kisii we only have one female as a ward representative.
In Lamu County, residents of Maisha, Masha and Pangani in the Lamu West constituency are urging the government to beef up security in the area.
Implement masikari wakuja wakae hapo na issue zetu za hapa tuzipeleke hapa karibu. Wananchi wameshindwa kutoka hapa mpaka Witu ni kilomita karibu 10 na.
On conservation, the World Wildlife Fund has initiated talks for the adaptation of nature-based solutions to address the climate change crisis in Africa. Finally, data from Naivasha Law Court shows that cases of child abuse, child sex trafficking, and other related vices are on the rise in Naivasha and Gilgil. Naivasha Principal Magistrate Juliana Dengeri noted that Naivasha, being a transit town, has also contributed to child trafficking, with the victims being ferried to Congo and Rwanda.
We have, in our knowledge and also in some of our court cases, realized that we have issues of sexual exploitation or trafficking in persons for purposes of sexual exploitation.
For Prime Edition, I'm Purity Musyoka.
this is the first time it's happening in Africa.
That's where we can measure up where we really are.
Acaba very quick conseiller.
Enyimba is Nigeria.
I want Mamelodi Sundowns to conquer Africa.
Angola style is fighting and very fast players.
Tepe Mazembe ni ekipi isha kufanya histoire monde mzima.
عندنا طاقات كبيرة، عندنا طاقات لعابة كبار.
سيمباز تنزانيا.
أي بطولة هي بالنسبة لنا بتبقى أهم بطولة.
Are notified to report and surrender unclaimed financial assets to the Unclaimed Financial Assets Authority UFAA on or before November 1st, 2023.
Katika hii investigation, sasa ile wewe limaliza, wewe lipata mimi ni nani ya marehemu?
Wewe ni ndugu yake.
Na wewe lipata hii msichana Lucy ni nani yake?
Ni mtoto yake, hata kama sio biological, yeye ameadapt na akachukua hiyo majukumu ya mzazi kwake.
Yes, I think that is correct because automatically we'll find out ya kwamba yeye si part of the family.
Pass the baton. Unclaimed Financial Assets Authority. Receive, safeguard, reunite.
Welcome. Let's look at the day's business. I'm sitting in for the business news anchor. Plans are underway to train local manufacturers on the different standards for products in key markets in efforts to boost exports. The training will aim at ensuring the local products meet international standards. Why? To enhance Kenya's competitiveness. This was the key message at the launch of the 6th edition of the Changamka Shopping Festival 2023, held in Nairobi, Kenya.
Overall, Kenya is a net importer, with exports mainly being agricultural products either in their raw or semi-raw form. To correct this, the government, in partnership with the Kenya Association of Manufacturers and Partners, are rolling out an initiative to train local manufacturers on standards required for their products in the different export markets.
Kenya must commit to building, creating, adding value, and taking pride in locally produced goods.
Through this, we have begun the conversation, the design and planning for common user facilities, which are going to be located here in Nairobi.
Local manufacturers, with the support of the government, have rolled out the 6th edition of the Changamka Shopping Festival, offering Kenyans a chance to sample export quality locally made goods. This is aimed at dispelling the wrong assumption that locally made goods are not quality in efforts to reduce reliance on imports.
Under our policy and advocacy, we have a very specific committee and also a team which deals with anti-counterfeit as a menace. And of course, as we get more complaints from our members, we engage with the ACA, but also we drive around policy. We work with government to see how we can reduce this menace.
The Principal Secretary says the county aggregation and industrial parks being set up in counties are aimed at promoting consumption of local products as well as securing more export markets.
What we want is to bring the discussion about manufacturing to a national conversation. The idea is that each county will set up an industrial park. We will start little aggregation and manufacturing, but that area belongs to all the manufacturers.
Ndotamo Kami for Prime Edition.
There is need for farmers to integrate new technologies and innovation to transform the agriculture sector and increase food production. This emerged during the inaugural African Conference on Agricultural Technologies that kicked off in Nairobi, as Trevor Ngendo narrates.
Even though Africa is home to over 60% of the world's arable land, the continent still grapples with food insecurity. In a bid to address this, Kenya is hosting the inaugural Africa Conference on Agriculture Technologies, bringing together government representatives, technical experts and farmers to discuss how Africa can leverage technology to accelerate production.
The government of Kenya recognizes agriculture as a key pillar in the country's economic transformation and is committed to increasing investments in the sector. Our ambition under the bottom economic transformation agenda better is to transform key agricultural value chains that we believe will contribute significantly to realizing food security.
Linturi says uptake of modern agriculture technologies would help Kenya unlock the huge potential that agriculture has.
The government recognizes that agriculture offers one of the quickest payback periods for investments, as it has great potential to generate higher incomes for our people and create employment opportunities. But to unlock this potential, we must embrace new technology and innovation.
Delegates noted that the growing population in Africa has seen a surge in demand for food, hence the need for the continent to embrace innovation to produce more food.
Africa must adopt technology to improve our food supply. Also produce raw materials, process it and export to earn foreign exchange.
We are also working on genome editing, where we can work with a gene pool within one individual and edit.
The 4-day conference has brought together over 500 delegates seeking to offer recommendations on the importance of utilization of innovative agricultural technologies. Trevor Ngende for Prime Edition.
The government is leveraging on collaborations to upskill more students graduating from institutions of higher learning with cybersecurity skills to help tame the rising cases of cyber threats. Communications Authority of Kenya Acting Director General Christopher Mboya says Kenya needs a digital army to safeguard the digital space.
The Communications Authority of Kenya puts the number of cyber threats Kenya experiences at 1.7 billion annually, with the agency issuing over 31 million advisories to companies, institutions and individuals over the same period.
Basically, we have done very well as a country in terms of mitigating some of the risks that we've experienced in the recent past. And we do this by way of advising businesses and individuals, institutions that are targeted by cyber criminals.
Now, the government is seeking to partner with the academia and ICT industry players to upskill more Kenyans on cybersecurity.
We've done training, we've organized competitions, we have promoted ethical hacking, built capacity in cybersecurity so that we have a workforce.
I believe today's conference discussing about the skills needs in our cybersecurity workforce and how to build the skills in the security.
Currently, 14% of all cyber attacks involve the use of malicious software. 6.5% feature cyber criminals, overwhelming servers with traffic to overload infrastructure, and the rest targets web applications.
We need really to build capacity within the country so that we can scale up our national capability and cyber readiness so that we can be able to safeguard our cyberspace.
This comes in the wake of a cyber attack that disrupted access to some government services in July this year, renewing calls for concerted efforts in cybersecurity. The National ICT Policy lists cybercrime and cybersecurity vulnerabilities as among the challenges. Alanoko, Prime Edition.
A waste management project by Child Fund with the support of Coca-Cola has imparted entrepreneurial skills to hundreds of youth and women in Nairobi, Kenya, as well as sensitizing 25,000 households on proper waste collection and disposal. Child Fund Kenya Country Director Alice Anokur says that Tunawiri Nataka project ensured that there was a ready market for plastic waste and strengthened partnership with waste management partners.
People and women have been able to collect over 2,200 metric tons of waste They have had training and exposure, and they have also been trained in enterprise development so they can know how to turn waste into wealth.
I've been pretty much sensitized through this project, through the Tunawiri Kuataka project by Child Fund and Coca-Cola. We intend to provide a market that is dignified, offers fair prices, offers the right kind of training to pretty much encourage the youth and other stakeholders to understand why it's important to recycle, why it's important to take care of the environment, and why it's important to pretty much even consider the lives and the dignity of the people even engaging in this job.
Very well. Coming up, we dive deeper into tonight's sports coverage. The sports anchor is Bernard Okoch Okumu.
Holders are notified to report and surrender unclaimed financial assets to the Unclaimed Financial Assets Authority, UFAA, on or before November 1st, 2023. It is now easier to report and surrender. Visit www.ufaa.go.ke and get started. Beat the November 1st deadline. It is your turn to surrender and report qualifying unclaimed financial assets. Pass the baton. Unclaimed Financial Assets Authority. Receive, safeguard, reunite.
Mchezaji wa Loto Moto.
Mungu awabariki sana.
Ni wengi wanakushukuru bila hata wewe kufahamu.
Niliona Mungu wa ajabu ameshuka.
Ni wengi wanaokuaminia.
Imejaa, imebaki, yani hamtasabi.
Ni wengi wanaokuombea ushindi.
Hawa ndio niachiwe na mama yao wakati aligojeka kwa muda.
Ni wengi unaowagusa kwa kuwapa afueni na imani ya maisha.
Asante na Mungu akubariki pia.
Ni wengi unawatembelea.
Through hii program ndo tunajua vitu zingine.
Na imani yako inawapa amani.
Akaaga juu ya kansa.
Ushindi wako ni wa wengi.
Roma niendanga, Roma.
Asante mchezaji wa Loto Moto.
KBC Channel 1 magazine programs strive to disseminate news and information.
Welcome to Happening in the World of Entertainment
and achievements of individuals navigating through life.
Be part of the intelligent conversation.
Upper KBC Channel 1. Related to the interest of Kenyan public on various subjects of national importance.
Basi karibu tujifunze.
Keeping you up to date with the latest tech news,
challenges and remarkable stories of individuals with disabilities.
And you have a say.
Our magazine programs empower communities with words for conversations and a common language to approach the world.
For your infotainment needs, we have a great range of programs.
And yes, indeed, a very good evening and welcome to Channel 1 Sports. I'm Bernard Okumu, and let's begin with hockey, where the Kenya men's hockey team must bag maximum points in order to keep their 2024 Paris Olympic hopes alive. Now, when they take on arch rivals Ghana on Wednesday in the ongoing Olympic qualifiers in Pretoria, South Africa. The Fidelis Kimanzi side saw off Zambia 1-0 in their second match on Monday, just a day after suffering a 2-0 loss to powerhouse Egypt in their opening game, and now must win against Ghana to enhance their chances of taking part in the Paris Olympic Games next year. Currently, Egypt tops Group B on 6 points, with Kenya and Ghana tied in second place on 3 points apiece, although Kenya have a superior goal difference. The winners will be joining France, Australia, Netherlands, India and China, who have already sealed their berths at the 2024 Paris Olympic Games. Now we wish Kenya all the best as they seek to qualify for the Olympic Games for the 8th time. The first time was in 1956 and the last time was 1988. Back to Rugby here, where the national 15th rugby team, Kenya Simba's coach Carlos Katia, is optimistic that his charges are up to the task when they face Zambia in the Victoria Cup on Wednesday in Kampala, Uganda. Now, the tactician has named 13 test debutants in the Simba squad to face Zambia.
The Kenya Simbas arrived in Kampala on Monday and have been training at Kyadondo Rugby Club in Kampala ahead of their clash with Zambia. Coach Carlos Kanto has named 13 test debutants in the Simbas squad that will face Zambia.
We prepared very sufficiently, prepared very hard. We've tried to implement everything, but I think it's just a continuation of where we left off the last time we assembled. So the guys are looking sharp.
Paul Mutasmi, Alfred Orege, Joy Lizunga, Hilary Mwanzilwa, Ibrahim Ayo, Hilary Odhiambo and Jenson Miroga will make their test debut after being named in the side to start. The two sides last met in 2019 in the same tournament, where the Kenyan side emerged victorious after thrashing Zambia 31-6. Skipper George Nyambua will spearhead the Kenyan charges against Zambia. Simbas will play host Uganda in their next match of the Victoria Cup on Sunday. For Prime Edition, I'm Sila Onyango.
And newcomers Shabana will host defending champions Gor Mahia in the 9th round of the FKF Premier League on Wednesday at Kasarani Stadium. Shabana is in the relegation zone with 7 points, having only won one match from their 8 games so far in the league.
Kisii-based Shabana FC will be looking forward to register their second win in the 9th round of the FKF Premier League when they face defending champions Gor Mahia at Kasarani Stadium. Kogalo are enjoying an unbeaten run after playing 8 matches, winning 4 and drawing 4. The record holders are second on the log with 16 points, while Shabana FC lie at the relegation zone with 7 points. Other matches on card on Wednesday will see AFC Leopard face Kariobangi Sharks, Tusker FC play Ulinzi, Moroni Youth take on Bidco United, league leaders Posta Rangers will battle Kakamega Homeboys, while KCB will square it out with the bottom placed Sofapaka.
And Argentinian Inter Miami forward Lionel Messi won the men's Ballon d'Or for a record 8th time in Paris, France. Meanwhile, Spain and Barcelona midfielder Aitana Bonmati bagged the women's Ballon d'Or award.
2023 Ballon d'Or France footballer is Lionel Messi.
For the 8th time in his career,
Messi won his record-extending Ballon d'Or award ahead of Manchester City's forward Erling Haaland, as France forward Kylian Mbappe finished third. Messi has now won 3 more Ballon d'Or awards than any other footballer in history, with Cristiano Ronaldo having won it 5 times, most recently in 2017.
This chapter in the career of one of the game's finest footballers.
Women's Ballon d'Or 2023 goes to Aitana Bonmati.
Meanwhile, 25-year-old Aitana Bonmati won her first Ballon d'Or as she enjoyed a hugely successful year, helping her club triumph in the Spanish top flight and Champions League and her country win the World Cup in the summer.
Ladies and gentlemen, the women's Ballon d'Or of this year.
Trophy winner
Le trophée Gerd Müller est remis à Erling Haaland.
Manchester City forward Erling Haaland bagged the Gerd Müller trophy after scoring a record 56 goals. Argentina World Cup winner and Aston Villa goalkeeper Emiliano Martinez won the Yashin Trophy for the best goalkeeper in the world. England and Real Madrid midfielder Jude Bellingham won the Copa Trophy for the world's best player aged under 21. Bellingham was picked ahead of Bayern Munich's Jamal Musiala, with former winners Barcelona pair Gavi and Pedri, as well as Real teammate Eduardo Camavinga, also up for the award.
And the winner is...
Le club ayant le plus de nominés au Ballon d'Or. Et le vainqueur...
Manchester City and Barcelona women's team were named the best teams of the year as Real Madrid winger Vinicius Jr. received the Socrates Award for his contribution off the field in the fight against racism.
C'est Vinicius Jr. qui traite Socrates.
Instituto Vinu Jr. and the goal of his foundation is helping underprivileged.
And back to Africa now, where South Africa's Mamelodi Sundowns will face 11-time Africa champions Al Ahly of Egypt on Wednesday in the second leg of the semi-finals of the inaugural edition of the Africa Football League at Cairo International Stadium. In the other semi-final clash, Esperance of Tunisia will host Morocco's Wydad Casablanca at the Stade Olympique Hamadi Agrebi, that's in Bradis, Tunisia.
Mamelodi Sundowns target to reach the final of the African Football League following a 1-0 win over Al Ahly in the first leg on Sunday. Past ties between the two African giants of African football have been balanced, with each winning 4 of the last 12 meetings, while the remaining 4 ended in draws. Marcel Koller, the head coach of Al Ahly, anticipates securing a positive result after losing the first leg. For Sundowns to reach the final, they will have to beat Al Ahly in Cairo. Meanwhile, Esperance coach Tarek Tabet believes his side will reach the African Football League final despite losing 1-0 to Wydad Casablanca in Sunday's semi-final first leg.
It's a great ball in, and it's gone into the net.
Hikambo's fine second-half goal gave Wydad a narrow advantage to defend in this week's return match in Tunisia.
And in Italy, where last gasp penalty by Ciro Immobile gave Lazio a 1-0 home win over Fiorentina at Stadio Olimpico. Now, the loss denied Vincenzo Italiano side a spot in the Serie A top 4.
2 less than 4th place.